This is a very quick intro to the HTTP server that I'm building for LiveCode. Um, just want to show kind of what the philosophy is. I didn't really need static file serving, so I haven't added that yet. I really just wanted to be able to make HTTP requests to LiveCode and have it respond with an HTTP response after calling a handler in LiveCode. So that's where I focused. This is take some inspiration from things like Ruby Sinatra and Node Express. They're sort of lightweight servers that do things like routing and have the ability to add middleware. And I'll talk briefly about what those are. So what a router does is it's an object, and you can see this is an example file that I built that shows how to use the server file, which is here. And I've got two objects. I've got a router object, a router button, and a middleware button, and those are going to function. We're going to register those with the server, and the server is going to use those two objects to do its fancy stuff. So when we start a server, we assign a router and we assign middleware to it. A router basically takes a URL path and translates it to a LiveCode message name, a handler name, and sends it to this button. So if we look at the script, we'll see that there is a get.a.b.c method, or I'm sorry, handler here, and that will be fired if somebody sends a request, a GET request to a/b/c. And when the handler is called, it gets a reference to the request object and the response object, and those are just buttons back here in the server that store the properties and the methods or the handlers having to do with a request and a response. So in this case here, we can see that we get the query, which is a property of the request, and that's an array. So anything that's sent as name value pairs on the URL after the question mark will get populated into this query. And then we set the response to 200, the content type to text/HTML, and then we just set the body of the response to hello, and then we look at the query array for the first name item in there. So if I run that, here I'm using Postman to do my testing, and if I run that, we're going to run, and we'll get back Todd. Now if I change that to, say, Mike, and send it, we're going to get back hello, Mike. So we can see that's working. So that's a router. A router matches a URL to a handler in LiveCode, and when the router is done, the response is sent back to the client. Now we have another thing here, which is called middleware. And middleware is our handlers that get fired on the way to the route. So this is great for doing things like logging. So you can see here, let's delete this and we'll run this request again. We do a request, we get a request. There's a GET request for ABC, and it sends back to 127, it sends back to itself here. We're on the same IP address. Let's take a look at how those are implemented. So basically what happens is every script that is, or every handler that is in this script gets called in the order in which it appears here. So I only have one, but if you added other handlers, they would get called as well. So what happens is you have an opportunity to run stuff before the route gets called, and then when you trigger go next, it's going to go to the next handler in this script, and then when it comes back, when it's done, you have an opportunity to add something to the end. So you have to call go next, but you don't have to do things before and after. You can just do stuff before, like that, or you could just do stuff after by getting rid of this stuff here. So this gives you a way to do things on the way into the route. You can look at the request, modify the request, and then on the way out, after the route's done, you can look at the response and modify it, perhaps transform it from text to JSON or what have you. So that is that. And I've implemented a simple logger here, which simply just adds to a log and that's what you see here. So every method, every time we run, every time we make a request to the server, it's going to get logged here in this field. So that's an example. So this file is how you would implement, and this is the actual server itself in this stack here. That's it. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.